We know what it's an opportunity for. Send them.
Is she gonna say military-industrial complex? Hold on.
And that means more money for the defense contractors who are absolutely salivating over this war that is.
The big security concern, I think, from the US point of view is we don't want Ukraine to begin attacking into Russia. That would be very, very, very scary. That's like a worry. Holy shit. Some of the Syria before and after is. Destiny, it's literally the most retarded thing ever to think Russia did it when they could have just stopped.
Reversal for Biden. And a wish fulfilled for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who has pleaded for F-16s for months.
Oh, goody, an escalation of war. Something that was considered a red line by the Biden administration previously, especially when we're dealing with another nuclear power, Russia. And of course, Vladimir Putin has responded to this by threatening nuclear war with the United States, which is unsurprising. It's not the first time he's done it. The idea of sending F-16s to Ukraine makes it abundantly clear that the United States and its allies intend to continue engaging in this war for at least 18 months, possibly more, because there's some training necessary in order to ensure that members of Ukraine's military are able to operate F-16s.
The F-16, the backbone of the US air fleet, can travel twice the speed of sound, drop bombs on ground targets, and fire air-to-air missiles. Ukraine believes these planes provide a distinct advantage in the skies, enabling them to shoot down incoming cruise missiles and fighter jets, fending off Russia's punishing air assaults.
Can F-16 shoot down cruise missiles? Is that true? How fast do cruise missiles travel?
But up till now, providing F-16s has been a red line for President Biden, reluctant to provoke an unpredictable escalation from Russia. Still, in a February interview with David, Biden did leave the door open just a crack.
We know President Zelensky continues to say what he really needs are F-16s. Will you send F-16s?
Look, we're sending him what our seasoned military thinks he needs now.
You don't think he needs F-16s now?
No, he doesn't need F-16s now.
That was what he said in February, but clearly he has now changed his tune. Now, for the moment being, there's no indication that the United States is going to transfer its F-16s to Ukraine. It's just that our allies will be doing so. But let's keep it real. Eventually, the United States will be doing so as well, because it's an opportunity for, we know what it's an opportunity for. Send them.
Is she gonna say military-industrial complex? Hold on.
More weapons. That creates a need for the United States to replenish its weaponry. And that means more money for the defense contractors who are absolutely salivating over this war that is.
How am I watched this. I watched this video too. I did watch this video. I did pre-watch this. I pre-watched every single progressive video ever made, okay?
Now quickly becoming an endless war. And I'll explain more of that in just a moment. But Cenk, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in.
Yeah, so guys, the administration is partly worried about it because it's an escalation. I would say that's the minority concern. They're not really talking about the majority concern, which they mentioned in some articles, but they mentioned it in passing as if it's the smaller concern. I don't think so at all for reasons I'll explain here. The larger concern is they don't want the technology to fall into the wrong hands, mainly the Russian hands. Because it's one thing for the Ukrainians to have an F-16, it's another thing for an F-16 to get shot down in area controlled by Russia.
Is that true? Aren't F-16s like fucking 30 years old? How old are F-16s? I'm sorry, 30, they're like 50 years old. If we were talking like F-35s, maybe. But like, is there technology on an F-16 that Russia doesn't already know about? These are old planes, no? Like, the platform is old, but the tech is pretty new. F-16 current generation is less than 10 years old. Okay, maybe there is something new, I don't know.
Where they could then
the radar is new technology.
Just take the F-16 and reverse engineer it, right? And so now you might think, well, okay, that's a real national security issue for us because the F-16s are excellent and it's a rare thing we do right in the US military in terms of technology. And so that could be a national security problem for us. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit of a concern too. But
is that true? Are we worried about Russians reverse engineering and then mass producing F-16s? That seems like That seems like not a real thing, but I could be wrong.
The larger concern is the people that sell the F-16 don't want anyone else to be able to produce cheaper F-16s without going through them, i.e. the defense contractors.
You know what? That is the most important part of the story, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid that these defense contractors, these military these military grade weaponry manufacturers have some competition. I mean, that's the real war we should be concerned about, Uger.
Exactly, but isn't it interesting that the media doesn't mention that?
No, it's not interesting. It's the most expected part of the story imaginable.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we went through the same thing with the M1 Abrams tank earlier in this war. And so the defense contractors are super nervous about their beloved technology, which they have now taking billions, if not trillions of dollars off the hands of US taxpayers and taxpayers in Northern Europe, et cetera. That technology falling into hands that would allow them to not have a monopoly on those weapons, okay? And so that's the iceberg of this story that no one else is talking about. By the way, also true of the so-called Pentagon accounting error that you might have heard about. We're gonna talk about that later in the show.
Now, John Kirby, who's a spokesperson for the White House, sat down for an interview about this new decision to allow for F-16s to be sent to Ukraine. And the big question is, doesn't the Biden administration see this as an escalation of war? Why the 180 on this topic? Well, he claims no, not at all. Let's watch.
Just a short time ago, the Kremlin responded, calling this a, quote, colossal risk. President Biden's concern from the very beginning with providing F-16s was that it could potentially escalate this war. What assurances does the U.S. have from Ukraine that they won't use these F-16s to fire into Russia that could widen this war?
I will tell you, Peter, we have had multiple conversations with the Ukrainians about the risk of escalation here. Nobody wants to see World War III. And we have made it clear that we're not going to encourage or enable Ukraine to strike inside Russian territory. Now, the Ukrainians have been very honest with us and very forthcoming and quite frankly, very responsible when it comes to the kind of support we're giving them, not using that to go inside Russia.
Someone in YouTube chat said, who cares if we escalate? Russia is already losing. The big security concern, I think, from the US point of view is we don't want Ukraine to begin attacking into Russia. That would be very, very, very scary. That's like a worry.
Cool, I'm sure Ukraine would.
That's why we didn't want them having really long range missiles or whatever, because we're we don't want to give you the opportunity to start shooting into Russia, because that's kind of spooky.
Never do any type of offensive attack, or would never even consider attacking Russia.
Yeah.
Except here's a story that broke today. Ukrainian official confirms group of Ukraine allied Russians crossed into Russian territory and attacked town. Let me give you some more context, but before.
Well, hold on, but what does this have to do with them using weapons? These are Ukrainian allied Russians, like little militia groups, and I've heard in different stories about this, but this doesn't have to do with them using weapons that have been transferred. These are just people crossing the border.
Before I do, Jenks, seems like you have some thoughts on this.
I do. Listen, guys, the Ukrainians are not going to want to violate an agreement with America because America could cut off further weapons, et cetera, that they need. So would they attack the Russians right away? No, unlikely with the F-16s. But it depends on how desperate they get. So let's say they think that we're not going to send them any more aid, which is a possibility at some point. They think, well, we already have the F-16s, and understand why they might want to use them inside Russia, because Russia is firing missiles at Ukraine from inside Russia. And the only way to stop those is to bomb them inside Russia. So it only depends on how desperate the Ukrainians are. Once they have them, they have them.
So can we just at least be blunt about how this is an escalation of war? Come on, Cenk. Really?
It is. I know.
You really think Ukraine is under the impression that if they violate any agreement with the United States, that the United States would stop sending them weapons? Are you insane?
No.
Come on.
That I feel like that would almost assuredly be true. I'm sure there are a lot of strings attached to the weapons going to Ukraine in terms of how they function. If Ukraine started to become unhinged, I'm fairly certain the United States would crack down on it or withdraw support. Ukraine remaining in the good standing of the United States is probably incredibly important for Ukraine.
I think Ukraine is under the impression that at least be blunt about how this is an escalation of war. Come on, Cenk. Really?
It is.
Like you
No,
think,
I know.
You really think Ukraine is under the impression that if they violate any agreement with the United States, that the United States would stop sending them weapons? Are you insane?
No.
Come on.
And look, there's a reason why we would care. And we don't want instability because that could affect the stock market. So it's not like we have.
What? Dude, there's no are politicians just lizards to these people? Is it really you got to consider that, like, when we're talking about foreign relations here, like, a lot of these people know each other. Like, a lot of senators, a lot of ambassadors, a lot of foreign leaders in Germany, France, Russia, across NATO, in the United States, like, all of these people, even from countries that hate each other, know each other, right? Russian ambassadors, United States ambassadors, like, all this shit. The idea that, like, everybody's just working for the stock market. Everybody, like, I thought you said earlier they were working for the defense contractors. Like, what is it? Is it the defense contractors or the stock market? Because those two can be viciously competing interests. Because the defense contractors don't make fuck all for money when you compare it to the broader US markets, right? So it's just such a doomer take. Like, oh, the stock markets are driving the war. Like, are they? Really? Is Apple, is Amazon, is Facebook benefiting from war in Ukraine? Like,
have any pure motives, but we do have motives for not escalating past this. But this is definitely an escalation. And by the way, don't get me wrong, will we escalate even further? It's enormously possible.
This is a disaster.
But guys, there's the theater as always and the real world as always. And the theater is, my God, we care about those brave Ukrainians. And is there some truth to that? Yeah, I think there's some truth to that for some people, right? But that's mainly the theater. When you get to the real world is how much are people gonna make off of it? And so it's not just the defense contractors, it's also the oil and gas industry. And we cut off the Russians' gas supply into Europe. Now we're replacing their supply. So, and then there's the banks who gambled on the gas, and there's the banks who gamble on the defense contractors. So there's a world, like probably hundreds of billions of dollars here, definitely, on the line for all those different industries. And they're constantly sending lobbyists to talk to politicians, including the White House, lobby, to make themselves more money. They don't care about our interests, the Ukrainian interests, etc. And that is what's driving a lot of these decisions, while the press puts on a play about humanitarian this, America's worried about escalation that, when in reality, most of the decision makers are worried about how much money everybody's gonna make.
You have to stop. This is something that I said. This is like one of my 5 rules of politics. You have to stop treating everybody that disagrees with you as an evil fucking enemy. Because once you've done that, that one trait disqualifies you from all political commentary. If you cannot have in your mind a conception of what a political opposite of you actually thinks, you should have no business even talking about it. Not to say, by the way, well, I'll qualify a little more. I'm not saying that you have to have like a perfect understanding of their mind, but you should at least know their arguments or be making an effort to understand their arguments. This idea of like, oh, it's all the stock market and all the Facebook and Apple and Raytheon and the only reason we're in war is for oil prices and no one actually cares. Like, bro, fucking Ukrainian citizens and what fucking, I want to say burqa, but it's not burqa. Is it burqa? Buka, sorry, like are being like raped and murdered and shit by like Russian soldiers. Okay, we're finding like graves of like raped children and stuff. Like the damage is real. Like we watched the videos, right? You see like a girl walking to school in like a building, a house across the street, getting fucking missile bombed behind her and shit. Like it's not like it's all fake shit. We've seen the before and after pictures of some of these neighborhoods, of some of these cities. Like it doesn't take a stock market conspiracy for a lot of Western people to see other Western people that are attacking, like, hey, that's kind of wrong, right? Not to say that there might be some greed or there might be some corporate mischief or whatever driving some stuff, but to just like say that all of it amounts to just like corporate lobbying, come on, dude.
Let's discuss the decision maker, shall we? Namely, the national security advisor who played a key role in persuading Joe Biden to allow for the transfer of the F-16s to Ukraine. And that person's name is Anthony Blinken. Now, what was Anthony Blinken up to after he was advising the Obama administration on foreign policy in Afghanistan?
Dude, some of these before and afters are insane. I didn't realize until Syria. Holy shit. Some of the Syria before and after is wild. But yeah, some of this Ukrainian city before and after shit is also, like, wild. Bucha is different than Bakhmut? I think Bucha was where the that one massacre had been discovered, right? Russia's strategy with Assad was similar, though, for the Syrian civil war as well. Like, this is what they would leave cities looking like. Is it Bucha? I don't know how to pronounce this shit. Bucha. Russia is a cheap army. The cheapest way to conquer is mass artillery. Dude, some of the Syrian pictures are just unbelievable. Like I said when I initially talked about this, this is like, it's a comical amount of damage. Like why would you ever even feel the need to unload so much on a city? There are more insane pictures than this. Some of these blocks were just like completely fucking leveled. These aren't even like the worst ones. Fuck, I wish I had a... I probably look at pictures of like Aleppo. Grozny also in Chechnya? Yes, true. Grozny was also completely fucking leveled to the ground. Is this the same? Oh, this has sliders. So much of Syria was just like fucking... Start saying razed to the ground and historians will love you. Yeah.
You know, the same foreign policy.
Age restricted. Yes. Jesus. Where was the video of the fuck, I'm not gonna be able to find it. It was like a TikTok, it was like a selfie video of a girl like walking to school, I think. And there's just like a bomb like explodes on a house behind her. It was like insane. There's so much like fucking ridiculous
policy that extended and expanded upon Bush-era trash foreign policy. What did he do after that, right? That little space in time where, you know, it was between Obama and now the Biden administration.
Right, bald and bankrupt in the old part of Aleppo. Oh, I thought this was gonna be a... I thought you were making a fresh and fit joke.
Okay, okay, thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you, thank you. That was a local Aleppan man, and this is the kind of stuff he has to walk past every day on his way to the market to make a few bob. Look at it. Unlike in the center of the city, the business district is completely untouched there, pretty much, I should say. But here in the old part of town, where here you can see the real scars of battle that took place between the...
This guy's at Tateson? Nice. Video of the girl walking to school. Why are we watching this right now? I'm clicking links. I'm linking. Oh, it was this. Jesus.
Humanitarian work is my guess.
No,
top guess.
No.
Working with the homeless.
No interest in that. In fact, he was part of a consulting group specifically having to do with getting defense contractors in the same room as government officials.
No, really?
Shocking.
In essence, lobbying for defense contractors between government jobs at State Department? Huh. Well, golly gee, I bet this is giant news to the people in Washington, and the reporters are going to clamor to cover this obvious conflict of interest.
So as Washington Post reported, let's go to graphic 5 here. Blinken played a similar role when NATO was at an impasse over whether to provide modern tanks to Ukraine. At the time, Germany was hesitant to approve the transfer of Leopard 2 tanks, a roadblock that was overcome when Blinken pushed the White House to approve the transfer of M1 Abrams tanks over Pentagon reluctance. Now, prior to Blinken serving as Secretary of State.
Now, this is what I don't like that media does, okay? This is what I don't like, okay? Because I'm not going to sit here and say she's right or wrong. What I'm going to say is, I need more information. Like, if you want to be a real media person, this is not real media, okay? If you want to do real reporting, tell me what Blinken said. What were his arguments? When you say Blinken pushed the White House to approve the transfer of M1 Abrams tanks, maybe it was really good that he did that. Maybe it was really bad. But you're not actually telling me information here. What if Blinken went to the White House and said, we're going to make a fuck ton of money if we sell M1 Abrams tanks to fucking blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's pretty shitty. You should report that. And it bolsters your argument. What if Blinken said, based on all of our strategic interests on the ground, all of the military analysis we've done, it looks like that if Ukraine doesn't have access to these tanks, they're going to lose in their fight against Russia, and their cities are going to fall, and the human suffering is going to be high. If he made that argument and then Washington was like, okay, we'll send him, well, that's not so bad anymore, right? Now, I don't know which argument he made because this is not real reporting. These are tweets. Like, tell me what actually happened. Just because somebody made a request doesn't necessarily mean it was good or bad. You need to tell me what they requested. What was the rationale that he used here?
When Blinken pushed the White House to approve the transfer of M1 Abrams tanks over Pentagon reluctance. Now, prior to Blinken serving as Secretary of State for Biden's administration, Blinken ran a defense-related consulting firm known as West Exec. In fact, when...
That's not surprising that a guy that is working in weapons goes on to do consulting related to weapons and goes on to do secretary work related to... Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Like, yeah, what the fuck? A lot of people that are CNN anchors and shit probably also used to be reporters, probably also used to write for newspapers, and probably also used to be journalist students. No shit. Show me something wrong. You can't just be going like, oh, well, look at that and that and that and that. Isn't that kind of weird? No, show me an actual wrongdoing.
And Biden tapped him to be part of his administration. I remember researching this and writing a piece on this because I thought that there was, some conflicts of interest here. And surely with the development of this war in Ukraine, the conflicts of interest are pretty brazen and pretty obvious. So West Exec did not respond when asked for a list of its clients. But according to people familiar with the arrangement, they include Shield AI, a San Diego-based company that makes surveillance drones, and signed a contract worth as much as $7.2 million with the Air Force to deliver artificial intelligence tools to help drones operate in combat missions. Blinken and Michelle Flournoy, another person who is close with Biden, have served as advisors to Pine Island Capital, which raised $218 million for a new fund to finance investments in military and aerospace companies, among other targets. So Blinken has a history of working on behalf of defense contractors and getting them sweet, sweet deals with the federal government. And that's exactly what I see here. I see this as an opportunity to make money for these defense contractors. It's pretty disgusting because I don't trust, do we really trust the Pentagon when they can't even pass a single financial audit?
Okay, if you don't trust the Pentagon, well, then why are you mad at defense contractors that are private companies? Because if you're saying these defense contractors are evil and you don't like the military-industrial complex, then what are you saying? We abolish all the private military contractors and the government themselves manufacture the weapons? Because if you don't trust the Pentagon, it seems like you definitely wouldn't trust the Pentagon to make weapons. Or, like, what is even the argument? What should even happen here? I don't even know what we're asking for. Like, what is the request here? That the U.S. just disbands its entire military? Like...
They haven't passed one. Do we really have trust and faith in them in regard to where the military weaponry is ending up? Do they have a full accounting of it?
No, of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
Okay.
And so all this is to enrich those folks. But guys, at the same time, the Ukrainians should get our help. And the Russians definitely invaded them, and they were definitely wrong, and it is definitely an imperial exercise.
I cannot unsee the makeup as you said before. Yeah, fuck. I'm sorry. I don't like to attack Anna on... That's weird. Don't do that. But yeah, you can see where the foundation line ends, and you can see the difference in skin tone. Some people it's really dramatic. But don't chill. Okay, I don't like that.
And so we're stuck in the middle ground here where we want to help good people like us want to help the Ukrainians without getting robbed in the process.
Yeah, peace talks. Okay, we don't actually, the United States government isn't actually interested in ending the war. Let's be 100% honest about that.
Well, that's definitely true because they're not encouraging peace talks because that is not in the Ukrainian interest if you ask me. And the reason is that the US has a separate interest is because the longer the war goes, the more Russia is depleted.
100% audit of the Pentagon. My understanding is we're not able to 100% audit any we're not able to 100% audit anything in defense because you can't we can't have a full accounting of what our military and intelligence processes are up to because it would kind of ruin the whole purpose of having intelligence processes and everything. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure there are I keep wanting to say AGIs, but that's not what they're called. What are the names of the government watchdog agencies? What are they called? I think every federal agency has like a counterpart watchdog. What are they? Can somebody tell me what they're called? I keep wanting, it's not AGI. Inspector Generals, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh, it might be GAO. U.S. Government Accountability Office, yeah. I think of the ones that, but I would have to look more specifically to see what is there like a government accountability office that looks into the Pentagon or whatever. I'm pretty sure there is, but yeah.
Depleted. And, you know, from our national security interests, people in charge want Russia as depleted as possible.
It's a proxy war.
So since it's a proxy war, and we're not the ones that are directly involved, Russia is, they're the ones that are getting weaker and weaker and weaker as their military gets depleted and run into the ground. And even if they quote unquote win and get parts of Ukraine, still their military will have been devastated, their pipelines will have been shut down,
or
sanctions will
blown up.
Yeah, or blown up, and that literally happened, and it's probably one of our allies, if not us directly. And so we will take advantage of all the things that happen because of the war. And so but that puts good people in the same basket as people who have no interest
People saying the DCAA does the audits.
Humanitarian issues and are just trying to make a buck off this. And it's an uncomfortable basket to be in.
And keep in mind that this is solidifying the alliance between Russia and China. So while this is a proxy war and the thinking among the State Department is that this is weakening Russia, it is also strengthening its relationship with China. I should also note that China happens to be one of the countries that is pushing for peace talks, but the United States, because of its interest in wanting to weaken Russia, is really unwilling to push for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the United States intends to continue this war for at least 18 months, if not longer. If you don't believe me, take a look at this final video.
President Zelensky has been begging for them for more than a year. President Biden has resisted until this point. So what changed?
Nothing changed. I mean, we have been evolving our support for Ukraine as the war has evolved. And when we're talking about
He just lied. We know Russia blew up the pipeline. I don't think, I feel like I read two reports recently. One was another one showing that Russia had ships in the area to blow up the pipeline, and another one was showing that actual Ukrainians blew up the pipeline. I don't know if we're any closer to knowing, or I don't know if we'll ever know who actually blew up the pipeline. I don't know if anybody knows that 100% right now. Oh yeah, Germany believes that Ukraine blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. But I feel like when I read into this, I don't feel like Germany had good evidence or arguments for it either. So I don't know if anybody. The German authorities think the attack could only have been carried out with help from a state security service and have uncovered evidence that may point to Ukrainian involvement, according to the Sabotage newspaper and its partner news organizations. But this didn't seem like any like smoking gun or whatever either, but
fighter aircraft. That's really not designed to help us in the immediate future here with the counteroffensive.
The training alone, John, could take 18 months, the defense secretary.
Well, that's an initial estimate. As the war's evolved, we've also started to have conversations with the Ukrainians about long-term defense needs, because when this war is over, whenever that is and under what conditions, they're still going to have a long border with Russia. They're still going to need significant defense support.
So at least 18 months just to train the soldiers in Ukraine how to use the F-16s. At least 18 months. So no end in sight. Let's just be absolutely clear about that. And in those 18 months, I'm just curious, how many times does the Biden administration intend to tap Congress to appropriate hundreds of billions of dollars more to assist in the war effort in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Well, by the way, simultaneously nickel and diming the American people, right? Right now, Biden is engaging in negotiations with Kevin McCarthy to raise the debt ceiling, and he is seriously considering work requirements for Americans who are so poor, who are so poverty-stricken, that they would need to do prove that they're looking for work.
Destiny, it's literally the most retarded thing ever to think Russia did it when they could have just stopped sending gas to Germany. Why would they bomb their own infrastructure and give up the possibility of restoring ties with EU countries years down the line? It's also retarded as Ukraine and the United States to blow the pipeline up, because if anything ever gets discovered for that, it literally like makes all of Europe fucking hate Ukraine and withdraw completely from the entire war effort. There's good reasons for and against like every player involved to take out the Nord Stream pipeline. I've read reasons for and against on all sides. I think arguably everybody had some kind of motive to do it, and arguably everybody has motives not to do it. But like I said, I don't think that any motive is particularly strong enough to say whether it was like, oh, these guys definitely were incentivized heavily to do it or not. But
or engaging in work in order to get welfare benefits that they clearly need because they're struggling financially. So nickel and dime the American people, continue this now new endless war with Russia. It's a proxy war. It's just, I don't know. I think that the way the U.S. has now decided to handle this is pretty disastrous and continues to get worse.
There's none to Russia. Give me one. I don't believe there's a single one for Russia to have done it when they could just stop sending gas to Germany. Because if Russia bombs the pipeline and gets blamed on Ukraine, then it makes it look like Ukraine is engaged in insane, like fucking foreign espionage, destroying pipeline shit that would weaken support for Ukraine. When support for Ukraine was already like pretty tenuous, right? It's not like we were initially super hyped up on supporting Ukraine. Like there was still a lot of doubt in Russia. I don't remember how long ago this pipeline bombing happened, but Is that like a super compelling reason? Probably not, but like, I mean, also, but for the United States, Ukraine to bomb the pipeline too. Like, we're already like sanctioning the fuck out of Russia and everything. I don't know. Like I said, Russia was using gas/oil against the EU as well, Destiny. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think there's like a super compelling reason one way or another, but.
So some estimates have them being trained by the fall. It's impossible to know. But the bottom line is Ukraine is doing a spring and summer offensive. They will definitely not, the F-16s will definitely not be ready by that offensive. But I also want to temper your expectations there because I see a ton of BS in the mainstream media. Honestly, nothing but BS in that regard. Why? If you are new to politics and news and you didn't follow what happened during the Iraq War, Afghanistan, etc., you might not know that whenever the New York Times starts writing about a new offensive and around the corner after that, we're going to win the conflict. That is untrue 100% of the time. I heard that same story in Iraq, I don't know, 80 times. Oh, a new offensive, and then we're going to end the insurgency right after that. It never ends. It just goes on and on and on forever, for decade after decade. And every time the Pentagon says us or our allies are doing a surge and we're going to win right after the surge, it is literally never, ever true. Okay, so don't buy that load of crap. And then the last point is, so as you saw them there, well, even after the war, we're going to have to keep sending them weapons. In other words, we found a nice little piggy bank here, and we're going to turn this into, one way of looking at it is Israel, where we're just going to give them billions of dollars in defense spending, paid for by the American taxpayer,
great,
and going straight to defense contractors who one day will probably hire me for millions of dollars. Oh, that's the part of the sentence he didn't complete, but is also definitely true.
Which is great, because the U.S. economy is dealing with a surplus right now, just a wonderful surplus, and we have unlimited resources to spend on forever wars. Great.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube.
I missed that whole last 2 minutes, but. Can't close Vim has responded. Destiny, with no proof though, no one believes Russia already, and so far they haven't tried to leak some documents proving Ukraine did it. So far, Germany's doing the investigation to believe it's more likely Ukraine did it. You're also making the leap that believing Ukraine did it is the same as believing the US did it. They could have done it independently. I don't know if Ukraine necessarily had the capability to do something like that independently. And again, you can believe what you want, that's fine. I don't give a fuck if you think Ukraine is more likely to have done it or the United States is more likely to have done it. I probably agree, maybe. I'm just saying that it's fucking retarded to pretend like conclusively you can just like, oh yeah, they definitely did it. You don't know that, you have no fucking idea. You're only saying that because of your own political biases. You have no idea for sure who did it. Like the likeliness probably is like on the Ukrainian side, but like you can't pretend to know.